we're going to be discussing the comics adaptation of the 9/11 Commission report, the 9/11 report, the graphic report. We've got a chance to take a look at this new comics property that is adapted from, I think, what we can easily describe as probably the most important document to come out of our government since in this new century. We've got a great panel, so I'm going to get right to it. To my left is Tom Levine, a publisher of Hill and Wang, nonfiction imprint at Farrar, Straus Giroux. To his right is one of the co-creators and adapters of the book, Sid Jacobson. Why don't we start right off and talk a little bit about how this book started?
It's wonderful to be here. I should start by saying the graphic books that I'm publishing are really being driven by two broad impulses, and what's remarkable for me with the 9/11 adaptation is it was a book that absolutely reflected both of these from the moment I saw the first pages. And those impulses are one, nonfiction, history, current events, science, using comics to speak about nonfiction subjects. And the second was to find subjects where you can use the comic medium, the graphic medium, to allow certain information to be clearer than it would be in any other medium. For me, the most immediate tell-all evidence of this were the very early timeline pages that were within the first 50 pages that were sent to me.
I know it's called a comic book. We never felt it was a comic book. What we felt is that this was a method of using knowledge and methodology that we knew to tell more an easier story, a story for fools, as most of this country is made of. And to make it easier to understand what these people found.
You know, Sid, how, you've been doing things for across an incredible range within the comic industry. How do you see this as different from or of a piece with things you've worked on in the past?
Well, most people, and most people here, I'll assume, don't really know or weren't there at the beginnings of comics. Comics was not simply a superhero world. I often make an example. Parents Magazine, for 10 years, did 2 comic books that were based on real-life sports, real-life adventures, biography. And it was used for all of these kind of variety of those kinds of things. It was also used during World War II. Will Eisner being one of the men who dealt with it, on things for the United States Army that were done for the unions to tell their story, for cities to get out to vote. It was used in all sorts of ways that now is pretty much forgotten. People don't. They think of comics basically today as superheroes, violent adventure, and Archie. Well, it was a much bigger field years ago, with sales that were probably 10 to 15 times a month more, if not more. And so when we would think, when Ernie and I would think of, well, what can you use this medium for? It was an easy jump. It was obvious to then say, my God, imagine what you could tell in this if you did it graphically. So that's, I mean, it's a long history, and it's been there in a lot of forgotten parts. And certainly the graphic novel today has given a new impetus to it, and obviously, and certainly through many of the things you've done, is changing the look of what that is.
It's such an easy news lead to say 9/11 the comic, and the broader public just immediately assumes that's a pejorative. That's inherently, by pairing the two, you've done something that's trivializing. And I don't know how you get beyond that outside of simply putting books out there. And of course, again, there are lots of books that have already done this. A small number, and it's an increasing number, have really broken into kind of the general public awareness. But you just have to simply put books out there where all of a sudden somebody realizes that it's driven by a very different instinct and attempts to do very different things than when they say 9/11 a comic. And so that there's going to be no strike of lightning. It's just going to be Hill and Wang's effort and several other publishers to simply consistently put out books that make evident what it is they're doing, like I believe the 9/11 adaptation does. And all of a sudden, I think it'll take a turn where it will be that much harder for, again, and we saw this in a couple of newspapers already, we make it that much harder to simply get away with that kind of galvanizing lead, to simply pair a serious subject to the term comic and leave it at that.